Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. After the main character dies in his previous life, he gets reborn inside of high school DxD, and he is reincarnated as Gojo Satoru from Jujutsu Kaisen. What will Gojo do inside of DxD?
DxD, what if I am Gojo Satoru? Chapter 1, White Room, Red Sky. Gojo's POV. Dying was the easiest part. It happened in silence. Not pain. Not violence. Just the sharp weight of failure folding in on itself. I remember standing on a field of broken stone. A body beneath me. My hand covered in blood. Not mine. The weight in my arms was someone I'd tried to save. Someone I'd already failed. Then pressure. A splintering. The sensation of being squeezed inward, as if every cell in my body remembered something I didn't. Something ancient. Something too old for words. Then nothing. The next thing I knew, I was opening my eyes to a sky that was true red. Not blood red. Not wine. Not even sunset. It was something else. A shade not meant for the world I'd come from. I sat up in a bed that wasn't mine. The sheets were clean. The light was soft. A window stood open with a breeze I couldn't place. The air smelled like roses and ozone. Something floral. Something manufactured. The walls were paper white. A school uniform hung folded over a chair. There was a mirror on the opposite wall, and when I looked into it, I saw him. Gojo Satoru. Hair white as bone. Eyes the color of crushed sapphire. Not just blue dense. My face, but not mine. My reflection, but filtered through something impossible. And when I blinked, I saw too much. Not just the room. Not just the light. The entire building. The pipes behind the walls. The faint outline of a heat signature down the hall. Someone moving. Breathing. The six eyes were active. Always. My hands gripped the sink. I looked back at the mirror and smiled without humor. You're not dead, I said to the reflection. You're just someone else now. The name I used to wear was Apex. No surname. No origin. Just the shape I had made out of death and instinct. I was a soldier. Not of any country. Not of any god. Just survival. Someone who climbed too high, too fast, in a world that never promised mercy. A world without gods or dragons or devils in school uniforms. My world had been stripped of all that. Gray skies, clean bullets, tactical logic. Everything could be predicted. Until I died. And now. I was here. In this world. A world I recognized instantly from the moment I stepped out of the apartment and saw Kyoa Academy rising in the distance. White walls. Gothic architecture. Ivy vines curling along the third-floor windows. Students in perfectly tailored uniforms. I knew exactly where I was. This was high school DxD. And I was already inside the game board. The first week passed like a strange dream. Everything was painfully vivid. Students filed into classrooms like clockwork. The girls' skirt lengths were ridiculous. The boys were either horny, deluded, or both. And somewhere behind the innocent surface of this town, the factions were watching. Heaven. Hell. Gregory. None of them had touched me. Yet. I was registered as a transfer student. Satoru Gojo, second year, class 2B. My presence didn't ripple much at first. Most people just stared. The hair, the eyes. The quiet way I moved through rooms. I could see the glances. Hear the muttering. Foreign exchange. Model. Maybe albino. They were harmless. The real tension came from the silence between things. At night, I sat on the roof of my apartment building and scanned the city with the six eyes. Kua was a wound pulsing with power. Magical currents laced the soil beneath the school. There were spiritual nexuses buried beneath the shrine paths. Stray devils roamed the outskirts after sundown. There were eyes watching Issei Hyudo, though he hadn't noticed yet. I had. He died last week. And then he got up again. Just like in canon. The reincarnation was exact. Reborn lured him in. He was stabbed. Rias resurrected him. I watched it from 3 rooftops away, watching the flow of demonic energy wrap around his broken heart. Her evil pieces slid into his chest with surgical precision. Rias hadn't seen me. But I'd seen everything. At school, I kept to myself. Not out of caution. Not out of fear. But because I was already planning. This world didn't follow cursed energy logic. No trace of negative energy. No spirits born from human fear. The supernatural worked on mythic principles here. Sacred gears. Divine blessings. Contracts with devils. Power was drawn from symbolism and belief. From status. From lineage. I still had the six eyes. I still had my mind. But my cursed techniques didn't function the same way. I spent my nights reconfiguring everything. Red didn't work. Blue collapsed in on itself and fizzled. Reversal energy reacted poorly to demonic mana. But infinity? That worked. The moment I extended it, the laws bent. Time stilled. Distance folded. Anything physical slowed before reaching me, just like before. It wasn't tied to cursed energy anymore, it fed directly on my will, my control over the gap between. It worked differently. But it worked. And that meant I could survive. 3 weeks in, the first real contact happened. I stayed after class that day. On purpose. I could feel her watching. Rias Gremory. She stood on the rooftop before I even arrived, pretending to read. The air was cool. Too perfect. This world didn't make mistakes with weather. I pushed open the rooftop door and let it click shut behind me. She didn't look up. Gojo Satoru-kun, she said. Her voice was too refined for a high school student. But that was the point. Everything about her screamed nobility. Not arrogance, calm authority. She carried herself like someone who had never been questioned. Rias Gremory, I said. She turned a page in her book. I was wondering when you'd say something. I took a few steps toward her and leaned on the railing. The school sprawled below us in neat, symmetrical lines. Students filed out toward the gates. I heard the buzz of cicadas in the grass. You've been observing me, I said. Only when I'm awake. I let that hang between us. Then she closed the book slowly and turned to face me. You're not registered with any faction. You don't carry demonic magic, or holy aura. You're not part of the church. You're not fallen. And yet your presence is. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. I'm not part of your world, I said quietly. But you see it. I see everything. She tilted her head, curious. Are you a sacred gear user? No. You're lying. No, I said again, but if that helps you sleep, go ahead. She stepped forward, careful. Not aggressive. She was reading me. Then what are you, Gojo-kun? I'm someone who doesn't like being told where to kneel. That made her pause. Then, almost softly, she asked, are you dangerous? I met her gaze. I am. To whom? To anyone who tries to put a leash on me. She didn't look afraid. Not exactly. Just thoughtful. Rias Gremory wasn't an enemy. Not yet. She didn't hunt people like me, she protected them, when possible. But she was still a player in the game. And I knew how far she'd go when pushed. "I'm offering you a choice," she said. "Come under my protection. Let me bring you into the peerage. I'll explain everything. We can make a place for you. And in exchange, I'll know where you are. Honest." I smiled a little. "You really think I'll say yes?" "I think you're too smart to stay unaligned. And the others will come. When they do, I'd rather you were behind me, not in their crosshairs." I didn't answer right away. Because she was right. That night, I didn't go home. I walked 4 hours. Through the parks. Past the shrines. Past the hollow alleyways where mana pulsed like a heartbeat under the pavement. I knew Azazel would be watching soon. I knew Kokabeel would rise early if something changed. Every choice I made now rippled forward. This wasn't a world you could coast through. This was a battlefield with lipstick. A chessboard with bikinis. A place where death came smiling. If I wanted to really live, I needed leverage. Not neutrality. Not isolation. Position. Power. Information. I stopped walking around 3 a.m. and stood under the stone arch of a forgotten shrine, barefoot in the grass. And I opened my eyes all the way. The six eyes roared. Not with sound but with clarity. Everything became color, shape, density. The ley line below the shrine pulsed with divine energy. The flow of mana wrapped upward through the soil like a root system. And in that moment, I understood. I could rebuild it. My techniques. My domain. All of it. I just needed time. And to survive long enough to get it back. Chapter 2, Idle Sunlight, Restless Weight. Gojo's POV. I didn't wake up tired. I woke up hollow. Mornings in Kyoto were too clean. The sunlight came in at the perfect angle. The clock ticked on beat. The walls held no memory. It was the kind of world that tried to lull you into softness with structure. But I remembered too much to ever relax. I'd been Gojo Satoru for exactly 21 days. That's how long it had been since I opened my eyes and felt everything, the six eyes slicing through fabric, through air, through lies. And behind it, deeper, the full weight of what I was now. Who I had to pretend to be. Not the strongest sorcerer. Not the apex predator. Just a second-year student at Kyoto Academy. No one suspected me. No one understood me. And that's exactly how I wanted it. Classes were pointless. I filled in the tests half-blind. Watched the chalk move. Let the world slow down around me just to remind myself I could. There was a whisper about me now. I heard it in the locker room. In the stairwell. He doesn't blink. Did you hear what he said to the gym teacher? He just stares at people. Cool but kinda freaky, right? I didn't care. The more distance I kept, the more freedom I had. But one person didn't get the message. Issei Hyudo. He crashed into my life with the energy of someone who didn't believe boundaries were real. Gojo-san, he called, sprinting up the steps 2 at a time, almost slipping on his way to class. I didn't respond. He caught up anyway. You always come early, hey? What, you got, like, insomnia or something? I have discipline, I said. Oh. He scratched his cheek. Sounds fake, but okay. He followed me all morning. Saturday near me in homeroom. Found a reason to hang around during lunch. He asked questions I didn't answer. Talked like we were already friends. I never told him to go away. He wasn't interesting. Not yet. Just loud. Stupid. A pervert with a one-track mind and no tact. But he had one trait that mattered. He was honest. That made him rare. And that made him useful. I'm just saying, he said with his mouth full of sandwich, if someone like you joined a club, all the girls would probably follow. I looked at him sideways. I don't need followers. You need to lighten up, man. I'm light enough. He blinked. You sure? I leaned back against the courtyard wall, eyes closed. My infinity sat low and thin today, only 3 atoms thick. Enough to stop dust. Not enough to interrupt the flow of mana beneath the soil. I'd been testing how this world's systems interacted with mine, mapping leyline density, mana pressure, and ritual boundaries in silent pieces. Issei kept talking about breasts. I half listened. At the end of the day, I saw her. Rainare. Not by name. Not by face. But I saw the difference. The air shifted when she walked past the second-floor windows. Her presence left no scent. No temperature. A subtle void trailing behind a human shape. Something wearing skin like a mask. I didn't move. Didn't tense. Didn't react. But I knew. She was looking for him. Not today. Not yet. But soon. After classes, Issei caught me again. Yo, Gojo, wanna hit the arcade? No. He looked disappointed. Oh. Right. Probably too cool for that. I adjusted my collar. I don't like noise. Then what do you like? I stared at him until he fidgeted. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. You got that scary cute vibe, you know. I stood. Don't say that again. Yes, sir. I walked off. He followed. We ended up at a quiet side park. Issei kicked stones while I sat on the bench, watching the shadows stretch long across the pavement. He talked about nothing. Clubs. Teachers. Girls. He was so transparently desperate for attention, I could practically see the need hanging off his shoulders. I didn't offer any answers. I just let him talk. Because people like him were always lonely before the fall. That's what made them easy to use. But I wasn't here to use him. I wasn't here to change his fate. I was here to observe. To learn. And when the time came, I'd act. Not because I wanted to protect him. But because I needed to know how far I could go in this world before everything tilted out of balance. For now, he was just a boy. And I was just a shadow in his periphery. Watching. Waiting. Chapter 3, The Ripple and Silence. Gojo's POV. The morning didn't feel different. The sun still cut across the courtyard like it had every other day this week, low, white hot, too clean. The gates still opened with that faint electric click. I still saw the same sleep-stained faces dragging backpacks and small talk through the walkway like dying insects. But I knew something had shifted. The air was the same. The uniforms were the same. But the tension had settled lower today. Beneath the conversations. Beneath the footsteps. And then I saw him. Issei Hyudo, walking 10 feet ahead of me, shoulders back, face flushed. Too flushed. Mouth twitching. Trying not to smile too hard. I already knew. It happened just past the shoe lockers. He'd opened his cubby to find the usual mess: crumpled papers, an unwrapped candy from Motohama, and wedged in between it all, a note. A handwritten note. I didn't need the 6 eyes to know what it said. His face gave it away. He stood frozen for 6 full seconds. Then bolted. I could hear his sneakers slap against the tile all the way down the hall as he ran, hands in the air like an idiot. He didn't see me watching. But I watched. Of course I did. Because this was the day. The day everything would begin. I caught up with him after second period. He was panting against the wall beside the second-floor vending machine, red-faced and pacing like a man with a fever. She asked me out, he said before I even spoke. She actually asked me out. Who? I asked, knowing full well. Long black hair. Cute voice. New transfer, I think. You're sure she wasn't asking for directions? He looked wounded. Come on, man. Even I know what a date invitation looks like. I watched him for a long second. He wasn't lying. He believed it. More importantly, she'd made him believe it. Congratulations, I said dryly. I don't even know what to wear, he muttered, hands in his hair now. Crap, I have, like, one shirt that doesn't smell like chicken nuggets. He paced back and forth. I didn't speak. Because there was nothing to say. I knew who she was. Yuma Amano. Black hair. Soft eyes. Disarming smile. The girl who would walk with him beneath the pink sky. Take his hand. Ask for his feelings. Then kill him. But he hadn't died yet. So neither had the future. I drank slowly from a melon soda while Issei ran mental laps in front of me. He was planning. Dreaming. Thinking about hands and lips and maybe something more. I didn't interrupt him. The world was still whole. For now. By lunch, the rumors had started. Issei Hyudo? Seriously? She asked him out. Did he pay her or something? She must be into losers. He sat 2 tables away from me, slouched low, grinning like an idiot while his so-called friends piled on questions. Matsuda and Motohama half-joked, half-interrogated. I sat alone. Chopsticks idle. 1 foot tapping. The cafeteria was too bright. The shadows were too sharp. I didn't like this light. Too many eyes. Too much heat. Everything was focused on him. He'd been chosen. Plucked out of the dust. Marked. I didn't envy him. But I watched. That's what I was here for. After school, he found me again. I was on the roof. Same spot. Back against the fence. Head leaned back, eyes half shut behind the glasses. My infinity was off today, skin bare to the world. I didn't need protection. I needed silence. He broke it. She wants to meet at the park tomorrow. I didn't respond. He sat down next to me. Legs outstretched. Still flushed. Thanks, by the way, he said. For what? You don't, like, laugh at me. Or call me a creep. Or act like I'm a joke. I looked over. He was serious. Issei Hyudo, human idiot, was thanking me for treating him like a person. That said a lot. About this school. About him. About me. I don't believe in mocking people for being weak, I said. He blinked. You think I'm weak? Yes. He snorted. Well, yeah. I am. I didn't answer. The wind rustled the fence. He leaned back. Still gonna go, though? Of course you are. He gave me a look. You're not gonna say anything else? No. Not even advice? No. He grinned again, this time without the nervous twitch. You're a weird guy, Gojo. So I've heard. That night, I sat on the roof of my building. Shoes off. Feet pressed to concrete. A cigarette in hand, not lit. Just the shape of it between my fingers. The taste of something familiar in the back of my throat. My eyes stayed half open. Not fully activated. Not yet. Because I didn't need them. I could already feel it. A gathering. Quiet. Intentional. The edges of the world folding in. Yuma Amano wasn't a girl. She wasn't even trying that hard to fake it. She wanted him to follow. To hope. To submit. And when he did, she'd break him. Not emotionally. Physically. I didn't plan to stop it. Not unless something unexpected happened. Because I needed to see how far the world would follow the script. And more than that. I needed to know if this place would break the same way twice. Chapter 4, Where the Curtain Breaks. Gojo's POV. The sky was too soft. Pink clouds drifted overhead like someone had painted them on. The sunset bled orange across the park benches. I walked the perimeter at a careful pace, deliberate steps, no sound, no pressure in the grass beneath my feet. Infinity was active. Not enough to shield me from detection, just enough to keep the world from noticing. The trick wasn't to erase presence. It was to blend into the gaps. And right now, the world had plenty of them. Issei arrived 3 minutes early. I watched from a second-story rooftop on the street edge of the park, crouched behind a shuttered cafe sign, one knee balanced, posture relaxed. He wore the same blazer. Hair brushed. Sweat on his palms. Cheap cologne barely covering nervous skin. Yuma Amano smiled when she met him. She was perfect. Too perfect. Her laugh hit the right register. Her hand touched his arm with just the right pressure. Her words were wrapped in hesitation, like she wasn't sure she deserved his attention. Predator tactics. I'd seen it before. Never this literal. They walked through the park twice. She talked. He nodded. She asked questions with easy answers. He answered them with eager nonsense. She laughed like he was brilliant. He didn't notice that she never blinked. Not once. By the time they reached the clearing, I was in position. A higher rooftop. A fire escape ledge. Infinity reduced to a hair's breadth. Eyes half activated. The 6 eyes weren't fully open, but I didn't need them yet. My breath slowed. The world narrowed. She asked him if he believed in angels. He laughed. Said yes. She stepped back. Said she had something to tell him. The sun dipped low behind the treeline. Her wings unfolded. I stayed still. Watched the black feathers spread, curling with an oily shimmer under the fading light. She summoned the spear slowly. Not because she needed time, but because she liked watching fear grow. Issei stumbled backward. I saw it in his face. The moment fear overtook confusion. He asked what she was. She smiled like it was a gift. The first light spear formed in her palm. Smooth. Elegant. Radiating heat. She didn't throw it yet. She wanted to talk. Explain. Say it was nothing personal. I tuned her voice out. Instead, I tracked the energy curve. The fall of temperature. The leyline pressure shifting around the clearing. The world was responding. Kuaha's spiritual net was activating. The church wouldn't notice. Not yet. But Rias would. And that was the point. When the spear moved, I didn't flinch. I watched it. Watched the arc. The distance. The frame. And then, just as it started to leave her hand, I exhaled. Not cursed energy. Not magic. Just a focused distortion. A breath. A shift in the pressure above Issei's left shoulder. Enough to make his eye twitch. Enough to make his vision tilt. Enough to make his gaze rise instinctive, panicked, reaching toward the skyline behind the trees. He thought of her. Red hair. The girl from school. Rias Gremory. He didn't know why. But he thought of her. And in this world, that was enough. The spear hit. Blood sprayed. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just watched as his body hit the ground, light fading from his eyes. He wasn't dead. Not yet. But close. She vanished. Done. Left him there. Alone. Until the summoning circle opened. I saw the flicker first. A spiral of scarlet, rippling space beside his collapsed form. Magic layered with ancient code. A Gremory class transference seal. It wrapped him in red. His body vanished. The park went still. I stepped down from the roof slowly. No one saw me. No one ever did. I reached the clearing. Stood in the blood. Stared at the air where he'd been. It was done. Canon was intact. But I hadn't preserved it for their sake. I needed time. Distance. A wide field. Because this was only the first piece. And I had plans. Rias would take him. Heal him. Make him her pawn. Kaiba would train him. Asia would follow. Zenovia would come later. So would Irina. Then Violet. Then Gasper. Then everyone else. All pulled into someone's orbit. Someone's plan. But not mine. Not yet. And that was going to change. Back on my roof that night, I drew a list. Not on paper. Not aloud. Just names in my mind. People this world would claim. People it would pull into service, into obedience, into ideologies and families they didn't choose. I could offer them something else. Power without allegiance. Freedom without branding. Loyalty without ownership. My own group. Built early. Built carefully. Before the others sank their claws in. I would start with Gasper. Useless to the Gremory clan. Feared. Sealed. He wouldn't be trained. Not properly. Not until it was too late. Then Zenovia. Once the church excommunicated her, she'd drift. Then Koneko. Another tool, wasted on silence. If I moved quietly, I could reach them. Before Canon did. Before Rias. Before Azazel. Before fate hardened. And so I watched the sky. Felt the shape of the world click into motion. And I smiled. Not because I was part of it. But because I wasn't. And that meant I could move however I wanted. Chapter 5, Saints, Swords, and Scars. Gojo's POV. The church sent them early. I caught their scent on the wind, faint oil, gunmetal soap, incense. Sharp, sterile smells. Too clean for Kuaha's late summer air, which always carried the scent of dust and hydrangeas this time of year. They wore plain clothes, but it was in the way they walked. Back straight. Head slightly bowed. Shoulders too tight for civilians. Eyes too quiet. Agents. The Vatican's exorcists. And among them, 2 swordswomen, still untouched by heresy. Zenovia Quarta and Irina Shido. Canon called for them to appear after Issei became a devil. They came investigating the loss of a stolen Excalibur fragment. That meant they would clash with Rias. Clash with Azazel. Break into factions. Turn into chess pieces. But I wasn't interested in Canon. Not anymore. Because I'd seen what happened to people in that script. They were used. Recruited. Broken. Then rebuilt to fit someone else's plan. And I didn't like when people with that much power were forced into anyone's mold but their own. So I followed them. Monday, 11:03 a.m. Kuaha's shopping district. They walked 3 meters apart, standard spacing. Blending with the morning crowd. Irina stayed close to the storefronts, smiling a little too easily, hand always hovering near her side as if reaching for a weapon that wasn't visible. Zenovia moved straighter, more focused. She didn't smile. Didn't blink unless necessary. She was beautiful, but it was the wrong kind. Not polished like Akeno. Not soft like Asia. She carried strength the way a blade did, silently, but unmistakably. They didn't recognize me. Of course they didn't. No one here did. I didn't mask my presence. I didn't need to. You don't hide the sun. You just look somewhere else. My hands were in my pockets, sunglasses resting on the bridge of my nose, sleeves pushed to the elbows. Kuaha's breeze tugged at the hem of my untucked shirt. I walked at an angle just behind, just beside, matching their pace but never stepping close enough to trigger instinct. When they slowed at the train station crosswalk, I leaned against a vending machine and cracked open a banana milk. Irina glanced toward me. A flicker of uncertainty. Zenovia said nothing. But her gaze swept wide. Too wide for someone just checking traffic. They felt it. Not danger. Not yet. But pressure. At the shrine stairs, they broke formation. Irina veered off to investigate the prayer boxes. Zenovia climbed alone. I followed her. Quietly. The shrine at the top was half forgotten. The boards groaned under my steps, even with infinity thinning the pressure beneath my solace. She didn't turn. Just stopped at the empty courtyard and faced the statue of some minor kami, one I doubted had received a prayer in years. I stood 2 meters behind her. Neither of us spoke. Wind moved through the leaves above us. Then, calmly, she asked. Why are you following us? I smiled. Didn't think I was. She turned. Her eyes were sharper up close, blue like cut glass, but not cold. Focused. You're not human, she said. No inflection. Just fact. Ah, I sighed, don't ruin the mystery so early. That's half the fun. She didn't raise her sword. Not yet. But her hand dropped to her thigh where the hidden case hung beneath her skirt. I raised both hands lazily. Don't worry. I'm not a devil, either. Promise. Pinky swear. She didn't smile. Trespassing on church surveillance routes is hostile behavior. I took a slow step forward. You think you're the only ones doing surveillance? She didn't answer. But don't worry. I'm not here to fight. Then why follow? I tilted my head. Because you're interesting. She didn't flinch. Didn't move. But her stance shifted a tiny weight transfer onto her back leg. Subtle, professional. She was trained. Rigid. Efficient. That would make things harder. Or more fun. Irina arrived a moment later, breath light from jogging the steps. She blinked at me, confused at first then suspicious. Who? Hey, I cut in, lifting a hand, you're Irina, right? She froze. How do you know that? I turned to Zenovia. And you're Zenovia? Swordswoman. Exorcist. Strong moral compass. Deep unresolved authority issues. Probably raised in a rigid compound school where physical excellence was praised and emotional nuance was considered heretical. They both tensed. Zenovia's hand brushed her blade case. Who are you? I'm a second year at QI, I said simply. They didn't react. I pushed up my glasses. You've been sent to monitor supernatural balance in this region. Probably tracking residual signatures from something stolen. Maybe a sword. Maybe something dumber. Either way, you're about to get swallowed into a faction war where none of the options are worth trusting. They stared. I'm not asking you to trust me, I said calmly. I don't want your loyalty. I'm not a recruiter. I hate recruiters. Irina frowned. Then what do you want? To offer a different kind of path, I said. No leash. No label. Just power. Knowledge. Time. Until you figure out what you want, not what they trained you to want. They didn't respond. That was fine. This wasn't about now. I turned and walked away. No dramatic exit. No last line. Just silence. I left them standing there, hearts steady, heads tilted, the first cracks forming in everything they thought was settled. They wouldn't defect today. But they'd remember. And when canon pushed them to choose, when betrayal came, and exile followed, and the church turned its back, my shadow would be the only one that hadn't asked them to kneel. Back on my rooftop, I lay flat under the stars. The night sky above Kua wasn't perfect. The light pollution dulled the constellations. But it was quiet enough. Below me, the town shifted. Issei was waking up. Rias would welcome him soon. Asia would arrive. Akeno would begin training. And I would begin collecting. Not followers. Allies. Scattered, neglected, underestimated. The ones too strange for the script to use properly. I'd reach them before the world claimed them. And this time, no one would rewrite them but themselves. Chapter 6, The Cat Beneath the Stone. Gojo's POV. Koneko Tijao was one of the most tightly sealed pieces on the board. Not because she was protected. Not because she was watched. But because she had already shut herself off. A locked box. White hair. Flat stare. Voice like an apology. Always a few paces behind Rias Gremory. Always quiet during battles she should have crushed. Always polite in the way orphans learned to be when survival depended on not drawing too much breath. In canon, she followed. Obeyed. Saturday silently behind tea sets and training plans, and smiled only when told. And even later, especially later, when the memories came back and the full shape of her power returned, she still gave it away. For loyalty. For approval. But I'd seen what she really was. And I didn't want her to be anyone's tool this time. I started small. No confrontation. No pressure. No conversation. Just presence. It was always presence. You learn things from a person just by being in their air. So I found the places she lingered. The greenhouse behind the school gym. The broken vending machine in the library stairwell. The east rooftop, where most students didn't go, because the railing was too low and the wind too strong. I didn't speak to her. She didn't speak to me. But she looked. Twice. And that was enough. Day 5. I brought a second melon bun. Saturday 2 benches down from her during lunch and left it between us without comment. She didn't touch it. Day 6, I ate mine slowly and left hers anyway. Day 7, she picked it up when I wasn't looking. Didn't say thank you. Didn't need to. She wasn't stupid. She knew I wasn't normal. The school's social instincts were sharper than its supernatural ones. People could sense when someone didn't bend to the flow. I didn't chase rank. I didn't join clubs. I didn't flirt. I didn't ask. I watched. And Koneko? She watched back. Day 9. I found her in the courtyard after class. She sat cross-legged on the back edge of the tiled wall, eyes half-lidded in the afternoon light. Cherry blossoms caught in her hair. She didn't move when I walked up. I stopped 3 steps away. Bad day? I asked. She didn't answer. I waited. She stared straight ahead. Then, after a long moment. Too loud. I sat on the edge beside her. You don't like crowds. Don't like noise. Then why come to school? She looked at me. Slowly. The weight in her pupils was older than her body. Because I was told to. I exhaled softly. That was the core. Obedience. Reflex. The command that replaced childhood. She wasn't the only one who'd lived like that. But she was the only one still pretending it was fine. I didn't push. Didn't ask about Rias. Didn't ask about her clan, or her nature, or the trauma sleeping under her skin. Instead. You're stronger than you let people see. She blinked. So. Why hide it? Because I'm not supposed to fight like that. Who told you? She said nothing. Her hand twitched. I leaned forward slightly. Let my voice drift low. I've seen your real strength. I've seen what happens when you stop holding back. It's not ugly. You don't know anything about me. I don't need to. I saw enough. You're lying. No. You're guessing. I turned, met her eyes. And smiled. I don't guess. The tension held for a full 10 seconds. Then she looked away, back at the trees. I don't want to hurt people. Then don't. But when I don't fight seriously, I lose. So what? So then other people get hurt. I leaned back, arms stretched along the edge of the wall. Maybe you should stop protecting people who ask you to lose. She didn't move. Didn't speak. But something shifted. Not much. Not a tear. Not a crack. Just a single thread in the knot she'd tied around her chest, loosening by half a turn. I left before the bell. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. That was the rule. Don't corner her. Don't push. Don't ask her to speak more than she wants. Just show up. Make her think. Make her doubt the orders she's memorized. Let her imagine what it would mean to be strong without being owned. And wait. Rias wouldn't notice. Not yet. To her, Koneko was quiet. Reliable. A silent piece on the board. Not dangerous. Not problematic. She wouldn't see the fracture until it was too late. Until the girl she raised like a weapon realized she could choose a different hand to hold the blade. Or none at all. I stood at the top of the stairwell after school, watching the sports field below. Asia had arrived. I saw her blonde hair, shy eyes, hands tucked under her sleeves. She wasn't part of Rias's world yet. But she would be. Unless someone else got to her first. Someone who didn't need her to be a pawn. I let the thought sit. Didn't act on it. Not yet. Koneko was the first move. Asia would be the second. Slow. Quiet. Deliberate. No flags. No faction symbols. No contracts. Just questions. And choices. By the time I reached the sidewalk, Koneko had already left. But the melon bun I left on the wall was gone. And in its place tucked just behind the drainpipe. A folded paper napkin. Written in neat, awkward kana. You're still weird. I smiled. Progress. Chapter 7, A Flower After Fire. Gojo's POV. Asia Argento was always the tragedy hidden in plain sight. A girl raised on blind faith. Wrapped in white robes and silence. Worshipped for her power, then thrown out for using it on something human. A healer who never learned to protect herself. She never should have come here. But this town, this ugly, holy scar carved between heaven, hell, and every broken ambition in between it, had a way of drawing people like her. People too soft. Too trusting. People who would burn for others without ever asking why. She didn't belong to Rias yet. Not to anyone. But that wouldn't last. So I waited. Freed cells and wasn't subtle. The man moved like a butcher dressed as a priest. I picked up his trail 4 days before Asia's fall began. Blood-spattered boots. Concealed firearms laced with exorcist glyphs. A twisted grin never quite buried beneath his false civility. He haunted the abandoned church at the far edge of Kua like a parasite clinging to hollow faith. The same church Asia would be lured to. The same place she'd die. Unless I stepped in. I didn't stop it. Not yet. Because intervention had rules. You can't save people before they want to be saved. You can only catch them after they've stopped pretending someone else will do it. Asia still believed someone would come. The church. God. Anyone. That illusion had to break first. The attack happened on a Sunday. Bright morning. Empty streets. A perfect frame for cruelty. I tracked the scent of blood before the scream even reached the edge of town. By the time I reached the church's eastern tower, the air was already thick with salt and gunpowder. Asia was on the ground. Knees scraped. Robe torn. Fried stood over her, laughing. Sword out. Light blade hissing with mock righteousness. His monologue wasn't even good. Something about corruption. God's judgment. Fallen innocence. Standard fanatic garbage. Asia tried to crawl away. He pressed a boot against her spine. I didn't move. Not yet. The key was timing. If Rias arrived first, canon snapped back into place. If I appeared too soon, Asia wouldn't understand what she lost. So I waited until Fried lifted the sword for the kill. Not a taunt. Not a bluff. A clean arc. Intent to end her. Then I dropped. No flash. No energy. No dramatic entrance. Just air pressure. I landed silently behind him, the fall absorbing through infinity. He didn't notice me. He just paused. His mouth twitched. Then he turned. And stopped. I stood there, white hair catching the light through broken stained glass, glasses pushed up the bridge of my nose, sleeves rolled. One hand in my pocket. The other holding nothing. I smiled. Oh, sorry, I said. Is this seat taken? Fried reacted fast. I'll give him that. He jumped back, blade up, holy symbols activating in his coat. His voice snapped sharp. Who the hell? Local student council, I interrupted. Anti-homicide division. He sneered. You're a devil. Nope. He scanned me. Angel. Too hot for heaven. You with Gregory. Do I look unemployed? He screamed and lunged. I stepped left. Let him pass. Then flicked 2 fingers forward. No cursed energy, just a burst of raw compressed air, focused through a pulse of infinity. It hit his ribs and launched him sideways through 3 pews. He groaned and didn't get up. Asia stared. Mouth open. Eyes wide. She looked at me like I'd appeared from myth. I walked over slowly. No rush. She flinched when I knelt. I didn't touch her. Just looked. You okay? She nodded too fast. I raised an eyebrow. You sure? Her lip trembled. Then she broke. Not into tears, just a quiet, shaking breath, and a look in her eyes that said no one had asked her that in years. I carried her out. Didn't ask permission. She didn't resist. Fried didn't follow. When we reached the field outside the church, I set her down gently on a bench beside the old bus stop. You're not from around here, I said. She shook her head. No. I came to Kua because I thought someone might let me stay. I leaned back, hands behind my head. And how's that going for you so far? She looked away. I didn't know they were going to kill me. I watched the road. Yeah, I said softly. That tends to ruin the welcome. We sat there in silence. Cicadas buzzed in the grass. A car passed by without slowing. No Rias. No devils. No scripted rescue. Just me. And the girl who was supposed to die here. She asked me, after a long while, "Are you going to turn me in?" To who? The church. I snorted. They already threw you out. To the devils. I turned toward her. You want me to? She hesitated. I just want to live somewhere where I'm not hurting anyone. Then stop handing your life to people who treat it like a sin. She stared. Her voice dropped. What are you? Bored, I said. She didn't laugh. Didn't speak. But she didn't run either. And that was step one. I left her at the shrine just outside town. Told her where the key was hidden. Gave her the name of the old woman who left food for stray cats in the mornings. Didn't give her a phone. Didn't give her instructions. Just a choice. Stay or go. She stayed. That night, I climbed the scaffolding of the western bridge and sat with my legs dangling over the river. Above me, the moon turned red behind cloud cover. The supernatural balance had shifted again. I could feel the ripple. Rias would notice soon. She'd find the blood trail. Ask where the girl went. But it was already too late. Asia Argento wasn't a pawn anymore. And if she joined anyone after this, it'd be her choice. Not a rescue. Not a reward. Just a decision. That's what I was building. Not a team. Not a faction. Just a place. For people who'd never had one. Chapter 8, The Boy Behind the Door. Gojo's POV. Gasper Violati had been sealed like a problem someone didn't want to admit they caused. Buried under manor stone. Tucked away in a room with thick walls and thicker barriers, as if silence could solve the things people were too scared to look at. He was young. Too young. Part vampire, part mistake. Too much power. Too little control. Genderless in practice. Disposable in theory. Rias didn't hate him. But she never used him either. Because Gasper wasn't a piece she trusted on the board. Just a leftover. A half-formed threat waiting to break wrong. And that made him perfect. The Gremory estate was shielded by 4 layers of warding, 2 divine-graded sigil lattices drawn from old-world demon architecture, 1 scent-scattering environmental field, and a dimensional time fold that kept the inner grounds a quarter shift out of alignment with surrounding space. It was meant to keep church weapons out and teleportation tracers from Gregory off balance. It wasn't meant to stop me. I approached at 3:42 a.m. Dressed in black. No shoes. Infinity tuned to 4 microns, just enough to pass through low-level alarm traps without triggering noise flares. No cursed energy. No sorcery. Just layered perception and pressure control. The trick wasn't in breaking the seal. The trick was in making it look like no one had ever been there. Gasper's chamber sat 3 levels below the eastern wing. I bypassed the active seal grid by matching my steps to the monopulse, a rhythm-based lock meant to sense foreign intrusion. It took 22 seconds to sync with. Then I was in. The hallway smelled like old incense. Not fresh. Just the memory of something once burned for comfort. The doors were thick. Reinforced. But I could see through them. The 6 eyes painted the chamber in quiet layers. A bed in one corner. A television that hadn't been turned on in months. And in the far corner, a small figure. Knees tucked up. Pale hair spilling over thin arms. Awake. Watching the door. Not with fear. With habit. Like he'd been waiting his whole life for it to open the wrong way. I tapped once. No sound. Then I stepped through. Not through the door. Through space. Infinity folded. I blinked forward. No light. No pressure. Just one shift of presence. From hallway to chamber. He looked up. Eyes wide. Didn't scream. Didn't move. Just froze. Hey, I said. No smile. Just calm. Soft tone. Neutral stance. I'm not here to hurt you. He didn't believe me. Not yet. He tried to speak. Choked on it. Then managed. Are you real? Sometimes, I answered. Depends who you ask. He stared. I sat on the floor, cross-legged. Made no moves. No threats. Let the silence settle. Then. You're Gasper. He nodded, slow. You're scared of yourself. He looked down. You freeze time when you panic. I didn't mean to. I know. It just happens when I'm scared, or someone yells, or... It's okay. His voice cracked. It's not. It's never okay. I mess things up. I ruin missions. I make Rias-sama look weak. She sealed me so I wouldn't get in the way. No. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. She sealed you because no one taught you how to control it. He stopped breathing. You're not broken, I said. You're untrained. He looked up. Eyes glassy. I am too dangerous. You're just a kid. I'm not human. Neither am I. I smiled. His hands clenched in his sleeves. Then, quietly. Why are you here? I stood. Walked once around the room, letting my foot tap the edge of the ward lines. Not breaking them. Just checking. Then I turned back. Because everyone else treats you like a locked door. He flinched. I don't do locked doors. You're not from this house. Nope. Then what do you want from me? I met his gaze. Flat. Direct. I want to give you a choice. He didn't answer. Didn't nod. Didn't smile. But he didn't scream. Didn't freeze me. Didn't run. That was step one. I left a paper tucked under his pillow. No spell. No threat. Just a simple glyph. If he touched it, it would trigger a signal. One only I could sense. No words. Just presence. I'm ready. That's all it would mean. When he was back on the roof outside the estate's perimeter, I watched the stars. The air still smelled like ash from the seal lattice I'd slipped through. Not broken. Just slightly out of alignment now. Someone would notice. Eventually. But by then, the boy behind the door wouldn't be alone anymore. And the game Rias thought she was playing wouldn't have all the pieces she expected. They kept hiding their broken weapons in silence. And I kept opening the doors they thought would never matter. Because silence doesn't protect. It just delays the moment everything explodes. Chapter 9, Sanctuary Without Saints. Gojo's POV. Everyone in this world wanted something sacred to stand on. A cathedral. A manor. A battlefield. A school rooftop. It didn't matter what shape it took. People needed a place. Even the strong. Especially the strong. Somewhere they could say, this is mine. I'd lived long enough, died loud enough, and watched enough systems fail to know that the strongest power in any world wasn't the sword or the bloodline. It was the home base. Not just a place to sleep. A place to belong. But I wasn't building a kingdom. I was building something that could outlast the board. Somewhere my people could walk barefoot. Somewhere the factions couldn't reach. Somewhere the broken ones didn't have to wear colors they didn't choose. So I found it. It took 3 weeks. I walked every leyline edge between Kua and the outer districts, tuned the six eyes down to minimal bandwidth, let the earth speak in pulses and fractures. This land was old. Too old for the churches and club rooms and contract circles layered over it. And buried just west of town beneath an overgrown shrine path and a rotted torii gate was a hollow. Not a cave. Not a ruin. A gap. A patch of spiritual dead ground the factions had ignored. No demonic pulses. No angelic wardings. No divine claim. Empty. Forgotten. Perfect. I cleared it myself. No magic. No ceremony. Just gloves, sweat, and silence. The torii gate fell with one push. The stone steps beneath the moss took shape one by one. There was a crumbled storage shed behind the shrine foundation, half collapsed, but salvageable. Beneath it, a cracked stone chamber no one had touched in 100 years. It became the core. I reinforced the walls. Etched my own glyphs into the ceiling, nothing flashy. Just silence fields. Pressure redirection. Spatial dilution. If someone walked past, they'd feel nothing. If someone scanned the area, the mana would bounce. If someone tried to trace me here, they'd get Kuaha Station platform, 3 kilometers east. Untraceable. Unclaimed. Mine. The shrine didn't need to be holy. It just needed to be safe. So I set the boundaries. Physical first. Then energetic. One layer tuned to demon resonance, just enough to stall a teleport. Another keyed to holy vibration, enough to confuse church relics. No alarm would trigger. They'd just walk past it. Like it didn't exist. And for them, it wouldn't. I didn't hang a banner. Didn't name it. I wasn't building a peerage. I wasn't giving anyone crests. But I was building a place where the ones too broken, too strange, or too early for canon could breathe. Asia would find it first. Koneko, when she chose to walk away. Gasper, if he ever left the dark. I didn't need them to swear loyalty. Just to show up. The first night I stayed there, I slept on the floor. No blanket. Just pressure fields holding the damp out of the stone. The roof groaned every few hours. Some of the old lumber was still intact. I let my infinity down for 6 hours. Nothing came. No devils. No angels. No watchers. For the first time since I'd opened my eyes in this world, the sky felt quiet. I woke up at 4:12 a.m. to a soft shuffle outside the wall. No pressure. Just wait. Not supernatural. Just careful. I didn't move. Just watched through the thin edge of the wall. A small figure stepped into the half-cleared courtyard. White hair. Black hoodie. Melon bun in one hand. Koneko. She didn't knock. Didn't call my name. Just sat on the edge of the stairs and placed the bun beside her. I waited 20 full seconds. Then walked out barefoot, hands in my pockets. You always show up uninvited? I asked. She didn't look at me. Someone left a note in my shoe locker. I leave notes for a lot of girls, I said. Keeps my handwriting sharp. She looked up. Flat stare. You're an idiot. And you're trespassing. She blinked. I brought food. Fine. You're forgiven. We didn't talk about the place. We didn't talk about what it was. Or what it was becoming. She didn't ask. I didn't explain. She just sat there. A silent mark of presence. And then, quietly like it wasn't allowed to be real. It's quiet here. I nodded. She didn't move. Didn't eat. Just sat. Until the sun rose. Then she left. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't say thanks. Didn't need to. She'd be back. That was the point. No expectations. No leash. No crest. Just space. And now it existed. Which meant I could finally stop playing defense. And start changing the rhythm of the game. I stood at the threshold that night, watching the wind tear through the broken leaves. Above Kua, power moved. Issei was training. Rias was pulling strings. The system would drag more pieces into play soon. Akeno. Rossweisse. The half-burned ones. Each of them would follow orders. Smile. Pretend. Until someone gave them a choice. That was going to be me. Chapter 10, The Lightning Pretends to Sleep. Gojo's POV. Akeno Himejima smiled too easily. That was the first thing you learned if you paid attention. Too soft. Too even. Too symmetrical. It wasn't a real smile, it was a ritual. A shield. Something she wore because silence alone couldn't keep people away. Most of the school never noticed. They just called her elegant. Mysterious. Beautiful. They didn't see the fault line in her chest. The way her voice held no weight in casual spaces, like she was afraid that if she put any pressure into it, the whole world might hear something she hadn't meant to say. But I saw it. I always saw it. She stood out on Kuaha's field like a painted silhouette, too graceful for student life, too poised for her age. People looked at her like she belonged in a castle or a church, not a school uniform. But I knew where she really belonged. Nowhere. She had no home. Just a throne of shame built from what she was. Half fallen. Half human. Himejima and heretic. Rias took her in. Gave her a position, a title, a smile to wear. But she didn't give her peace. That had to come from something else. Something quieter. Something like me. The first time I spoke to her, it wasn't dramatic. Just a hallway. After class. She was watching the bulletin board pretending to read it. I stopped beside her, hands in my pockets. You ever get tired of performing? I asked. She turned slowly. The smile was already in place. Good afternoon, Gojo-kun. I don't think we've ever spoken directly. We have now, I said. She tilted her head, elegant and controlled. That was a strange question. You didn't answer it. She smiled wider. Of course I did. No, I said. You covered it. Her hand twitched once. Subtle. Tense. Most people wouldn't see it. I did. The next time was the back garden. After sunset. She was tending the flower bed alone. Not club duty. Just movement for its own sake. I walked past without saying anything. But I let my aura leak just enough to disturb the soil. She paused. Looked over her shoulder. You're doing it again, I said. Doing what? Hiding lightning in a teacup. She stood. Graceful. Controlled. Is there a reason you're always so direct? I'm honest, I said. People just aren't used to it. She didn't report me. Didn't complain to Rias. Didn't avoid me, either. Instead, she started showing up nearby more often. 2 tables away in the library. 1 balcony over on the 2nd floor. Passing me in stairwells without speaking. It wasn't interest. It was testing. Like she couldn't figure out whether I was a problem or a mirror. She was right to wonder. The break came 2 weeks later. Sunday. Rain. Empty campus. I found her in the music room. Alone. Not playing. Just sitting at the piano bench. Looking at keys she hadn't touched. I stood in the doorway. You know, I said, it's rude to act elegant when no one's watching. She didn't turn. But her voice was calm. You came to mock me. No. You're not interested in me. Wrong again. She finally looked back. Eyes sharper than they'd ever been in class. I know your type, she said softly. Boys who think scars make women beautiful. I smiled. I think they make people real. She stood. Slowly. Walked to the center of the room. Each step deliberate. You think I'm a project? No. You want to fix me. I want you to stop pretending you're already fixed. The air cracked slightly. Lightning at her fingertips. Barely suppressed. I didn't flinch. She stepped closer. What do you want, Gojo? I held her gaze. Nothing, I said. I just don't like seeing someone that powerful wear a leash. Her hand twitched again. But this time, not with tension. With decision. She stepped past me. Paused at the door. Said nothing. Then left. But her smile wasn't there anymore. And for the first time, that meant progress. That night, I sat at the shrine. Alone. Rain on the broken roof. Akeno hadn't said yes. Hadn't said anything. But that was fine. She was thinking. And when the ones who smile start thinking, everything else starts changing. Chapter 11, No One's Lightning. Gojo's POV. Akeno didn't avoid me. She was smarter than that. When people start avoiding you, they start admitting you matter. And she didn't want to do that. Not yet. So she kept appearing. Deliberately. At the edge of the hallway. At the courtyard fence. At the third floor window when I crossed the yard. Her eyes always found me. Her smile never did. That meant I was getting closer. The others didn't see it. Rias still thought she held the full shape of Akeno's trust. She'd earned it, yes. Given her shelter, a purpose, a structure that didn't collapse under the weight of what she was. But it wasn't the same thing as peace. The guilt was still there. So was the obedience. Akeno wore her strength like a thank you note. She wasn't allowed to tear up. But I didn't need her gratitude. I needed her awake. I found her again 3 days later. Same back garden. Same late dusk hour. Same rain in the grass. But this time, she wasn't tending flowers. She was standing still. Eyes closed. Lightning dancing faintly between her fingers. Not full power. Not even a fraction. Just memory. A rhythm learned young. I walked toward her. No infinity. No cloak. Let the pressure touch the air. She didn't look up. Do you ever stop watching? Do you ever stop hiding? The lightning snapped once. Sharp, bright. Gone. She didn't turn. You want something from me? I don't want anything you're not willing to give. I don't believe that. That's fine. You don't need to. She turned slowly. The rain caught in her sleeves. Her eyes were dark. Not angry. Just ready. You don't understand what I am. Half human, I said. Half fallen. All dangerous. Still afraid of yourself. She stepped forward. Do you think you're clever? I think I'm patient. What are you trying to prove? That you don't owe anyone silence. Her smile was gone again. No mask. No seduction. Just the raw shape of her face without the polish. It suited her. She hated that. You don't know what it's like, she said, quiet now. To kill your own mother. To have lightning under your skin since you were a child. To feel it burn your blood every time you breathe. To be called a curse by the people who named you. She didn't blink. She didn't break. Just let it out. Like she was saying it to the air. I waited. Didn't interrupt. Didn't nod. When she was done, she turned like she would leave. Do you know what the worst part is? She asked, hand hovering near her shoulder. It's not the guilt. It's that it still feels good to use it. Even now. Every time I call it down, every time I make something scream, I enjoy it. I stepped forward. Fast. Close. No gap between us. I stared down into her eyes. You're allowed to enjoy what you are. She didn't move. You're not broken for liking your power, I said. You're not evil for using it. You're only weak if you keep handing the leash to someone else. Her breath caught. The air flickered. Lightning danced again, sharper, faster. I let it crawl over my wrist. Didn't flinch. Didn't resist. Just stood there. Watching her. She could kill me. She wouldn't. She wanted someone to stand there and not fall. So I did. You're dangerous, she whispered. So are you. And you're not afraid. No. You should be. I smiled. No, you should be. Because if you let go even once, the world's going to see what you really are. And then no one will be able to put you back in a box again. The lightning vanished. She stepped back. Stumbled. Caught herself. Shaking. She hated how much that got through. But it did. I didn't press. Just turned. Walked 2 steps. Then. There's a place outside of town, I said. No crests. No contracts. Just air and quiet. She said nothing. But I knew she heard. That night, I returned to the shrine. Rain had stopped. Roof still leaked. Asia's jacket hung from the doorframe. Koneko's melon bun was on the shelf. Gasper's glyph glowed faintly. No words. Just signals. And now there was one more shadow I could feel just at the edge of the hill. Not entering. Just standing. Watching. Akeno. Didn't speak. Didn't move. But she'd followed the scent. And she hadn't walked away. That was enough. Chapter 12, The One Who Waits Outside. Gojo's POV. She stood there for 2 hours. Never stepped closer. Never knocked. Never called my name. She just stood at the tree line beyond the broken shrine path, half shaded by pine, one hand resting loosely on the old trunk, her figure still as glass. She didn't wear the Kua uniform tonight. No braid. No gloves. No heels. Just a plain blouse, black leggings, and rain-damp hair pulled behind one shoulder. No makeup. No aura. Akeno Jima, alone, without the mask. And I didn't speak to her. Not once. Inside the shrine, the others were asleep. Asia curled against the stacked robes I'd turned into a makeshift bedding roll, her breathing slow, uneven, like she was still afraid to exhale without permission. Koneko had claimed the back wall. She didn't sleep like a child. She slept like a soldier, knees tucked, back straight, one hand under her shirt near the spot where she always kept her weight centered in a fight. Gasper was somewhere beneath the front porch. He said he liked it better there. Less light. Less noise. The seal around his body flickered faintly every few minutes, his own magic still trying to suppress itself, even when no one was demanding it. They didn't talk much. Not yet. Didn't share food. Didn't laugh. But they were here. That meant something. And Akeno was still outside. I didn't offer an invitation. I didn't open the door. Didn't even look directly at her. I kept working. Reinforcing the southern barrier. Redrawing the sigil lines at the base of the structure. The place was crude, but stable. Every day I added more. It wasn't for comfort. It was for durability. This place needed to survive what was coming. I activated the 6 eyes slowly, keeping the focus outward. She hadn't moved. Still watching. Like she wanted me to say something. Tell her to come in. Make it simple. Make it safe. But that wasn't how this worked. I didn't pull people inside. I left the door unlocked. What they did after that was their choice. At 3:31 a.m., she turned. Didn't look back. Didn't sigh. Just walked. Calm steps. Controlled spine. Perfect posture, even now. She disappeared into the trees. I didn't follow. The next day at school, she didn't speak to me. Didn't look my way in class. Didn't glance at me when we passed each other on the stairs. But her magic was thinner than usual. Like she hadn't slept. Like something inside her was off balance, just enough to lose the polish. It looked good on her. Real always did. That evening, I brought back 4 rice balls from the convenience store. Left one on the porch. Didn't write a name. Didn't leave a note. Just placed it gently. Then went inside. It was gone the next morning. No footprints. No sound. No aura. But I knew. Of course I did. The next time she came, she brought nothing. No bag. No food. No reason. She stood under the same tree. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched. Her face looked the same calm, soft. But her hands weren't empty. She held her own wrist with her other hand. Like she was trying to keep it still. Inside, Koneko was folding the blankets. Asia was writing something on torn paper, a prayer, maybe. Gasper was in the corner, fiddling with a broken fan I'd given him to test how he handled minor enchantments. They didn't ask about the figure outside. Didn't ask me who she was. But I felt it. The tension. Not fear. Just awareness. They knew she wasn't one of them. Not yet. I stepped outside. Only 2 paces. Just far enough to lean against the doorframe. Didn't look at her. Didn't raise my voice. Just stood there. Like she wasn't even there. And she stayed anyway. That was how it would be for a while. No call. No promise. No welcome. Just the door. Just the waiting. Because Akeno had never been allowed to choose anything in her life. Not her birth. Not her powers. Not her punishment. Not her smile. So I wasn't going to offer her anything that looked like a leash. I was going to offer her silence. And let her see what it meant to be free. Chapter 13, The Valkyrie Who Forgot Herself. Gojo's POV. Rossweisse arrived at Kua alone. No welcome party. No divine escort. Not even a divine blessing to keep her dry. Just one suitcase, one sword sealed in a low-resonance case, and a face so tightly composed it looked carved from tired marble. I saw her before she saw me. Of course I did. She stepped off the train wearing a coat that didn't quite fit, a scarf that looked regulation issued, and eyes that never left the horizon. Posture like a soldier. Presence like a bureaucrat. Expression like a woman who expected to be forgotten. Which she would be. Soon. Because Odin hadn't sent her to serve. He'd sent her to wait. To wait for him. To protect him. To be used when needed, ignored when not. I didn't like gods. But I hated waste. She stood on the platform alone for 6 minutes, checking her phone, muttering softly to herself. Something in Old Norse. A travel charm. A location scan. A comfort spell. Nothing responded. No one came. I leaned against the vending machine across the street and sipped from a grape soda I didn't pay for. Infinity makes small thefts irrelevant. My hair caught the sun. My glasses flashed. She turned. Eyes sharp. Instant calculation. One step out of the train station and her body had already shifted subtly, knees loose, hand near her coat, peripheral vision wide. She wasn't used to peace. Lost? I asked. She narrowed her eyes. Are you a guide? I smiled. No, I just like pretty women who frown at buses. She stiffened slightly. Then I'm not interested. Shame, I said. I was going to offer to carry your bag. I can carry it. I can tell. We stood there, 2 meters apart, wind kicking dust off the sidewalk. She adjusted her scarf. Do you always approach strangers this way? No, I said. Just the ones who walk like they're one order away from disappearing. That made her pause. Then, sharply, who are you? Student. Civilian. Bystander. She didn't laugh. Didn't relax. But she didn't walk away. Progress. I waited until she started walking, then followed without asking. She didn't tell me to leave. Didn't slow down. Didn't ask where I was going. She just kept moving. Like she was used to being shadowed. And I was shadowing her. But not for Odin. Not for Gregory. Just to make sure someone saw her before the world slotted her into a title she'd never asked for. We reached the outskirts of Kua. She paused beside a bench. Checked her phone again. No message. No instructions. Of course not. I sat on the bench before she could change her mind. You know, it's rude to keep a Valkyrie waiting. She turned. Eyes colder now. You know what I am. Everyone with a working brain knows what you are. She frowned. You don't feel like anything. Because I don't want to. Then you're masking. Or maybe I'm just naturally mysterious. She turned again. Started to leave. You'll be assigned to Rias Gremory soon, I said. She stopped. Didn't face me. Didn't speak. But her fingers clenched just once around her suitcase strap. Not because she needs you, I continued. Because Odin will forget you. And he knows she won't. She collects people like you, broken loyalty, heavy shoulders, reliable power. She turned. Slowly. Eyes sharp. You are dangerous, she said. I smiled wider. Only when I'm bored. I'm not broken, she said. I didn't say you were. You said Rias collects people like me. She does. And what do you collect? I stood. Walked 2 steps closer. Didn't invade her space. Just stood where the wind caught both of us. I don't collect, I said. I offer quiet. If people stay, it's because no one else let them speak without demanding something in return. And what would you demand? Nothing, I said. That's what makes people stay. Her phone buzzed. A message from the Gremory side. I saw the seal. She read it. Didn't respond. Didn't move. Then looked at me. Eyes unreadable. I have orders. Of course you do. I'm to report to Rias by sundown. Then go. Just like that. Do you want me to beg? She blinked. No. I turned to leave. Then paused. West path outside town. Broken shrine. If you ever get tired of being a sword with no sheath. She didn't answer. Didn't follow. But she didn't report me either. And that was enough. Back at the shrine, I didn't say anything. Koneko was sharpening a stick with a box cutter. Asia was making weak tea from grass she claimed was safe. Gasper was asleep. Akeno wasn't here. Not tonight. But that was fine. Rossweisse would come later. Not because I asked. But because one day soon, Odin would forget to call her. And she would remember I didn't. Chapter 14, We Sit with Strangers. Gojo's POV. Most people think the hard part is gathering the strong. It's not. The strong are everywhere bruised, tired, waiting. The hard part is getting them to sit in the same room without either killing each other or looking for someone to follow. I wasn't giving them a leader. I wasn't giving them a god. I was giving them a floor to sit on. That was harder. I didn't send invitations. Didn't give speeches. I just picked a night. Cleaned the dust off the old shrine floor. Laid out 6 cushions in a circle and left the door open. They came. Not all at once. Not together. But they came. Asia arrived first. She was always early. Too early. Like if she waited 1 more minute alone, someone would lock the door and say she wasn't allowed in anymore. She held her little satchel tight and glanced around like she'd entered a sacred space. "This is for me?" she asked, eyes wide. "No," I said. "It's for everyone. You're just the first to pretend it's not terrifying." She smiled. Nervous. Then sat back straight. Hands in her lap. Like she was waiting for a teacher to arrive and tell her how to behave. Gasper came next. Didn't knock. Didn't speak. Just slipped in through the back panel and sat near the far wall, half in shadow. I pointed to a cushion. He didn't move. I walked over. Picked it up. Carried it to him. Dropped it at his feet. "Don't worry," I said. "The others are just as weird." He blinked. "You mean broken?" "No," I said. "I mean weird. Broken is a word people use when they can't name what they're afraid of." He didn't answer. But he sat on the cushion. That was enough. Koneko came in 10 minutes late. On purpose. She didn't greet anyone. Didn't look at me. Just dropped into the far corner cushion and crossed her arms. I nodded once. "Nice of you to show up, princess." She rolled her eyes. "You're still annoying. And you still keep showing up. Funny how that works." She grumbled something about food. I slid a melon bun across the floor. She caught it without looking. Asia stared. "Are we allowed to eat?" "This isn't a cult," I said. "You're allowed to eat. You're allowed to blink. You're allowed to leave." Amazing, right? They all sat there for a while. Not talking. Not looking at each other. Just breathing in the same air like they weren't sure it wouldn't explode. Which meant it was time. I took the center cushion. Cross-legged. Arms loose. Back slouched. No speeches. Just one question. "Why are you here?" Asia answered first. "Because you helped me. And you didn't ask me to be anything. Just to be here." I nodded. Simple. Pure. Predictable. I turned to Gasper. He looked down. I thought if I came, you might teach me not to freeze everything. Can't make promises, I said. But I can make jokes until you stop caring how scary it is. His eyes flicked up. Just once. Not a smile. But something like a breath. I looked at Koneko. She didn't answer. Just stared back. Then. You're not in charge of me. Never said I was. You're not smarter than Rias. Nope. You're not stronger than her either. Yet. Her eyes narrowed. Then, quietly, so quietly Asia almost missed it. But you're not lying. I grinned. Darling, I never lie. I just let the truth wear cooler sunglasses. Silence again. But the air had changed. Not relaxed. But real. They weren't performing anymore. Not for me. Not for each other. Just sitting. The most unnatural thing in this world. I'm not here to make you better, I said. That's not my job. No one interrupted. You don't owe me anything. No loyalty. No symbols. You walk out that door, I won't chase you. Gasper flinched. Asia frowned. Koneko stared. But, I added, if you stay, there are rules. They leaned in slightly. There is no hierarchy. No power scale. No ranking. No one here is above or below anyone else. Asia blinked. But we all have different powers. Yeah, I said. And I have cooler sunglasses. Doesn't mean I get to decide who gets to matter. I stood up. Stretched my arms behind my head. Rias, Azazel, Odin, the church, they all build pyramids. Structures. Command lines. Every time someone joins, they get sorted. You think that's family, but it's not. It's furniture. I stepped back. Let them sit with it. You stay here, you don't get a role. Koneko raised an eyebrow. Then what do we get? You get a place. I turned toward the door. Didn't need to see if they believed me. Didn't need a vote. I just knew. They weren't leaving. Not tonight. Not yet. And that meant this place, this rotten old shrine with no name, no power, no god, was no longer empty. It was real. Chapter 15, Strength That Isn't Borrowed. Gojo's POV. Most people trained for power. Rias trained her peerage to function. Azazel trained soldiers to survive. The church trained children to die for something they didn't understand. But no one in this world trained for ownership. For identity. For standing on your own feet and saying, this strength belongs to me. Not my master. Not my faction. Me. So that's what I built. The shrine was quiet. Not silent, never silent. Cicadas buzzed in the grass outside. Birds chirped. Gasper coughed twice and pretended not to. Asia boiled rice and nearly set something on fire. But it was stable. And that meant it was time. Get up, I said. Gasper looked up from his book. Asia blinked mid-stir. Koneko didn't move. You're always vague, she said flatly. Say what you mean. I rolled my shoulders once, cracked my neck, and pointed at the overgrown courtyard behind the shrine. We're training. Koneko narrowed her eyes. You're not my captain. Correct, I said. I'm not wearing a stupid cape. Asia looked confused. Wait, what kind of training? Like learning to fight? No, I said, grabbing a broom and a bucket. Learning to exist without flinching. I didn't explain. I just made them do it. Asia first. She couldn't control divine flow. She never learned to separate healing impulse from reflex. That meant every time someone nearby felt pain, her own energy flared to try and take it away. She called it compassion. I called it unsustainable. So I sat her down on a cracked mat and cut my finger. She panicked. Her magic surged forward. I stopped it mid-air with infinity and made her watch. This is your problem, I said. You don't know how to watch suffering. You only know how to erase it. That's not bad, she whispered. It is when it kills you. She didn't cry. But she looked at me like I'd said something she'd waited her whole life to hear. Gasper next. He could already stop time. He just couldn't decide when. Every burst of emotion triggered a fragment of stasis. So I made him angry. On purpose. I sat in front of him and mocked everything. His old seal. His fear. His voice. His posture. He flinched. I kept going. Until his eyes glowed and the world paused for half a second. I stepped through it. Infinity bypassed the freeze. Snapped him back to normal. Then I sat beside him, calm. You didn't break anything, I said. You didn't hurt me. You didn't hurt yourself. You just got mad. He trembled. I hate it. I know. That's why we're going to do it again. Koneko was last. She didn't resist. But she didn't listen either. She followed the drills. Formed her stances. Threw her punches. But I could feel it. No soul behind the strikes. No anger. No intent. She was fighting like someone afraid of being too real. So I stopped her mid-swing and stepped into her space. Hit me like I'm her, I said. She froze. You want to get stronger? I said. Then stop fighting me like I'm your teacher. Hit me like I'm your sister. Her whole body tensed. I smiled. Go ahead. Call her name. You've been carrying it like a corpse in your chest this whole time. She didn't move. Then her voice cracked. Kurika. She swung. Not strong. Not skilled. But honest. That's what I needed. Not power. Not obedience. Just honesty. By sundown, no one spoke. Asia was asleep sitting up. Gasper was curled under the porch, breathing hard. Koneko sat in the gravel, arms wrapped around her knees, looking at nothing. I sat on the shrine steps. Hands in my pockets. Eyes half closed. Smiling. They didn't know it yet. But they were already stronger. Because now, their strength had nothing to do with orders. It was theirs. All theirs. The next day, none of them thanked me. That was good. I didn't want gratitude. I wanted them to remember how it felt to move for their own reasons. And tomorrow, we'd do it again. Chapter 16, Storm at the Threshold. Gojo's POV. I felt her again before I saw her. Akeno Himejima didn't walk like a spy. She walked like a priestess. Slow, precise steps. Hands folded. Face blank. But her aura? It never really slept. She kept it low, yeah. Tucked behind silence, behind the smell of flowers and afternoon tea. But I wasn't fooled. Lightning never hides. It just waits for the right moment to crawl up your spine. And tonight, she was closer than usual. Not at the tree line. Closer. Standing at the gate. I didn't say anything right away. Didn't call out. Didn't grin. Didn't make a scene. I just waited. Sitting on the porch, ankles crossed, teacup balanced on my knee. Infinity down. Glasses off. I didn't need defense tonight. If she wanted to strike, I'd let her. She didn't. She stepped forward. 4 slow strides. And then, she was inside. Feet on the old stone of the shrine yard. Her hair was down. She never wore it down. It brushed her collarbones like it didn't belong to a girl who lived in Rias Gremory's shadow. Her eyes were tired. Not dull. Not angry. Just tired. I tilted my head, half smile already in place. Careful, I said. Crossing into enemy territory without a flag? What would your captain say? I'm not here on Rias-sama's orders. I know. That's why I haven't kicked you out yet. She stopped just outside the porch shadow. Arms at her sides. No smile. You don't run this place like a faction. Congratulations, I said. You cracked the code. No titles. No hierarchy. No rituals. Not even matching jackets, I added. Though I've been told I'd look great in a black trench coat. She didn't smile. But the edge of her mouth twitched. That was enough. Inside, the others were quiet. Asia pretended to be asleep but kept sneaking glances. Gasper peeked from behind the doorframe. Koneko didn't look at all, but I could feel her pulse shift. They knew who this was. They didn't know what she was doing here. Fair question. So I asked. Well then, Himejima-san. I stood, tea still in hand. To what do we owe the honor? She looked at me. Hard. Not angry. Searching. I wanted to see it, she said. See what? This place. Her gaze swept the courtyard. The one where broken things don't have to ask for permission. I sipped. You sure you're ready for that kind of freedom? I don't know, she said. Honest. Finally. I walked past her, barefoot on stone. The gravel crunched under me. You know what they say about us, I said. The ones who walk away from perfect temples. They say we're traitors. They say we're dangerous, I corrected. Because we saw the foundation cracks and didn't scream. I stopped beside her. Close, but not invasive. Do you feel dangerous, Akeno? She hesitated. Sometimes. I nodded. Good. That means there's something left of you under all that grace. We sat. Not inside. Not out. Just on the edge. Porch to gravel. No distance, no pretense. You want to know what this place is? I asked. Yes. It's not a rebellion. Not a movement. Not a war camp. Then what? A floor, I said. To sit on. Without kneeling. She went still. Not tense. Still. The kind of stillness that only comes after years of holding your breath. Like she'd waited for someone to say that in exactly that way, for longer than she could remember. And what if I don't know how to sit? She asked. I grinned. Then you'll fit right in. The others didn't come out. They didn't need to. But the door was cracked open just enough for her to see them. Gasper sharpening a stick against the stone. Asia quietly reading an old spell book upside down. Koneko asleep against the wall, one hand on her knee like she was still waiting for someone to attack. None of them smiled. None of them stared. But none of them hid. And Akeno. She watched. And didn't look away. She stood slowly. Looked at me again. If I step inside, she said, what happens to the part of me that still calls Rias-sama my family? I tilted my head. Nothing, I said. I'm not asking you to cut ties. But you want me to loosen them. No, I said. I want you to decide how tight they should be. Not her. Not me. You. She looked at the door again. then at her own hands, then up at the roof. Still broken. Still leaking. Still mine. You're really not building anything, she whispered. Exactly. She stared. Then stepped forward. 3 steps. Past the threshold. No lightning. No smile. Just her. And that meant everything. She didn't speak again that night. Didn't join them. Didn't sleep. Just sat against the far wall, knees tucked to her chest, face turned toward the broken doorframe. And stayed. Chapter 17, Blades Are Just Memories. Gojo's POV. I never said the shrine was safe. I said it was quiet. Unclaimed. There's a difference. Safety is what people beg for when they don't know how to stand. Silence is what they need when they've never been allowed to speak. So when they all finally came, Asia, Koneko, Gasper, and now Akeno, I didn't tell them they were ready. I told them they weren't. And then I made them train anyway. The courtyard was still a mess. The gravel was uneven. The weeds fought for space. The sun came in too hard through the cracked roof. Perfect place to bleed. All right, children, I said, stepping onto the stone with both arms stretched overhead, loose, lazy, and barefoot as ever. Time to stop moping and start weaponizing your trauma. Gasper blinked from his half-shade corner. That's not motivational. Good, I said. Motivation is fake. Movement is real. Koneko was already stretching. Asia looked confused. Akeno stood with her arms folded, face blank. I grinned. Today, we learn how to fight without permission. I started with Koneko. She needed motion. Reflex. She was strong, sure. Fast. Durable. But she still moved like someone afraid of what would happen if she won. First lesson, I said, walking slowly around her as she shifted into stance. Don't hit me because I said to. Hit me because you want to. She didn't answer. Just lunged. I stepped sideways, let her pass. She spun. Low sweep. I slid back. You're still waiting for approval, I said. Still waiting for Rias to nod from a balcony and say yes, that was correct form. She growled. Actual sound. Good. She punched again. Faster. Stronger. I caught her wrist, gently. Didn't counter. Didn't punish. Just looked at her. You want to win? I asked. Yes. Then fight like you're allowed to exist. She froze. Her aura flared. Then she shoved forward, broke the hold, and swung. It hit. Not hard. Not clean. But it landed. Koneko stepped back, panting. Her eyes were wide. She looked at her fist like it was something she hadn't been allowed to own until now. Was that okay? I grinned. Did it feel like you needed to ask? She didn't answer. But she didn't look away. Progress. Next, Gasper. I handed him a knife. He nearly dropped it. I don't use weapons, he stammered. You're a vampire, I said. You are a weapon. But I don't. You're afraid of control, I said, circling him slowly. Because they told you power meant hurting people. That sealing yourself was kindness. He gripped the hilt tighter. I don't want to hurt anyone. Then learn how not to miss. I held up a target charm, small, wooden, carved to mimic motion. Threw it into the air. Stop time, I said. He hesitated. The charm spun. I can't. Stop it. His eyes flashed. Everything froze. Except me. I walked through the pause, held the charm still, turned it toward him. then stepped back as time resumed. It landed in his hands. He gasped. "Congratulations," I said. "You chose something." Asia's turn. She didn't flinch. Didn't run. That was new. I laid out 6 glass beads. 1 for each type of energy interference. Holy, demonic, reversed, null, sacred, wild. "Touch one," I said. "Tell me what you feel." She hesitated. Then picked the sacred bead. "It's warm," she said. "Because you think it's safe." She frowned. Tried another. Reversed. She winced. "It's not evil," I said. "It's just unfamiliar." "Feel it again." She did. Slower. Calmer. "It's not warm. But it's honest." I smiled. "Now fuse it with your healing." Her hands glowed. Soft. Unstable. Then steady. Light coiled around her fingers like ribbon. Her eyes widened. "I didn't know I could do that." "No one taught you to," I said. "They taught you to obey. Not to experiment." Last, Akeno. She was already standing. Barefoot. Sleeves rolled. She didn't ask what we were doing. She just looked at me and waited. "I'm not going to ask you to use lightning," I said. "Why not?" "Because you already want to." She blinked once. Then smiled. Not the old smile. A new one. Tired. Bitter. Real. "You're not afraid of me," she said. "Nope. You should be." "Maybe," I said. "But you're not the first girl who's tried to kill me with unresolved trauma." She laughed. Once. Then raised her hand. Lightning crackled. Real this time. No shame. No filter. Just her. The air snapped. A bolt flashed forward. I stood still. Infinity took it. It broke against me like a wave. She dropped her hand. Didn't look ashamed. Didn't apologize. She just breathed. I stepped forward. "You're allowed," I said softly. "Not because you're forgiven. Not because you're fixed. Because you exist. And that's enough." Akeno nodded once. Didn't say thank you. Didn't have to. They all stood there. Hands burned. Hearts thudding. Souls open. Not perfect. But awake. I looked around the shrine courtyard at the gravel, the moss, the broken roof, the faint glow in their eyes. "This," I said, "is what it means to train without a leash." Asia whispered, "Then what are we?" I tilted my head. "Nothing," I said. "No peerage. No clan. No rank. Then what do we call this?" Koneko asked. I stretched my arms above my head. "You're just people," I said. "And people who know what they are don't need a flag to walk together." Chapter 18, Loyalty Without Witnesses. Gojo's POV. The shrine still smelled like ozone. Akeno had left at dawn. She didn't sneak out. She didn't apologize. She just stood up, nodded once to the others, and walked out into the trees like the lightning had told her it was time. None of us stopped her. Not even me. Because the point wasn't to keep her. The point was that she knew she could leave. And that's what Kaiba couldn't understand. He arrived 2 hours later. Didn't knock. Didn't call out. Didn't show up with fire and accusation. He just stood at the shrine's broken gate, in uniform, arms crossed, trying to pretend the wind hadn't betrayed his footsteps long before he reached the gravel path. Kaiba Ueto. Rias's night. Quick smile. Quiet fury. Loyalty shaped into a sword. And he was here for her. Not for a fight. For proof. I was sitting on the porch. Sipping warm barley tea. No infinity. No defense. He approached slowly. Measured steps. Spine tight. Eyes watching everything except the people. Asia stepped out with a rag in her hand, blinked at him, and shrank away without speaking. Gasper retreated behind the wall. Koneko narrowed her eyes and didn't say a word. They all recognized him. Of course they did. He was Rias's. Through and through. So I smiled. Didn't stand. Didn't greet him formally. Just lifted a hand in lazy acknowledgement. Morning, Night-kun. He stopped 5 paces away. Close enough to strike. But not stupid enough to try. Gojo Satoru, he said. You've been building something behind Kyoa. No, I said. I've been clearing space. What people do inside it isn't my fault. Rias-sama is concerned. Of course she is. You've been gathering her people. No, I corrected. They left. I just didn't slam the door behind them. He said nothing. But the edge of his jaw shifted. Tension. Disbelief. Fear. Not of me. Of what this meant. Because if Koneko, Asia, and even Akeno had come here willingly, then maybe Rias's peerage wasn't a fortress. Maybe it was a cage. I stood. Walked down the steps slowly, tea still in hand. Stopped 2 feet from him. You here to drag them back? I asked. He didn't flinch. I'm here to understand. Dangerous word, I said. Understanding tends to dismantle obedience. His eyes flicked to the side toward the wall where Koneko still leaned silently. She didn't move. Didn't speak. But she didn't leave. He looked back at me. How long have you been planning this? I don't plan, I said. I notice cracks. I give people space. That's it. Then why are they still here? Because I don't ask them to serve me. I stepped closer. Only a little. Tell me, Kaiba, I said. When's the last time someone asked if you wanted to stay? His grip tightened. Not on a weapon. Just on the words he didn't want to say. You think I'm like them? No, I said. I think you wish you were. He didn't move. Didn't lash out. But he stared like the answer had landed too close to something raw. I'm not here to take them, he said quietly. I know. I just wanted to see it. I stepped aside. Gestured to the courtyard. Then see it. Asia had returned to sweeping. Gasper was scribbling rune translations on a page of old newspaper. Koneko sat on the steps now, peeling an orange with bare fingers, not offering any but not hiding it either. And Akeno's absence hung in the air like smoke. A presence made stronger by being gone. Kaiba watched them. Watched me. They look stable, he said. They're not, I replied. But they're themselves. That's more than they were last week. You're not building a rebellion. No, I said. I'm building choice. He was quiet. Then, cautiously. Will Akeno come back? She left on her own. That's not what I asked. I smiled. She knows where the door is. He stayed 10 more minutes. Didn't question anyone else. Didn't try to speak with them. He just stood. Watched. And listened. Like he didn't trust himself to look any deeper without finding something that would make it harder to go back. Then he turned. Walked out the same way he came. No farewell. No warning. Just quiet. Like he hadn't been here at all. That night, I found a note tucked under the melon bun shelf. Simple writing. Clean. Precise. She didn't smile once today. That's new. It wasn't signed. Didn't need to be. Chapter 19, Even Queens Have Fears. Gojo's POV. Kaiba didn't report what he saw. Not all of it. I knew, because the next day Akeno returned but only to the edge of the shrine, her face unreadable, her voice quiet. She didn't enter. She didn't speak to the others. She just pulled me aside, a few feet from the gate, and said, "She's coming." The way Akeno said it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a confession. And for her, that was progress. "She's angry?" I asked. "She's confused," Akeno said. Kaiba didn't say much. But he said enough. "Did he tell her about you?" Akeno didn't answer. But the silence said it all. "Are you ready for her?" she asked. I smiled. Am I ever not? Rias Gremory arrived at sunset. She didn't mask her aura. Didn't shroud her presence in politeness or courtesy. She announced herself like royalty stepping into a courtroom that didn't recognize her title. She wore the uniform. Red hair tied back. Eyes sharp. Pressure high. But her steps weren't heavy. They were uncertain. That was the tell. She wasn't coming for war. She was coming for answers. And she was terrified of what they might be. I met her halfway across the courtyard. No coat. No glasses. No infinity. She stopped when I did. 10 paces away. "I assume you know why I'm here," she said. "I assume you're here because you don't know," I replied. Her lips thinned. "You've been gathering my peerage." "Nope," I said. "They gathered themselves. I just didn't chase them off." She folded her arms. "I didn't come here to argue semantics." "Of course you didn't," I said. "You came here to see whether the people you thought loved you still do." That hit. Clean. Right under the ribs. She didn't react. Not visibly. But her eyes narrowed. She stepped forward. "Koneko is part of my family." "She still is," I said. She just wanted to see how it felt to exist without a last name. Asia was my responsibility. And now she's hers. Gasper is. More than a sealed doll in your closet. That one drew blood. Her fingers curled once. I didn't press. She wasn't stupid. Just scared. I walked past her. Slow. Calm. And said over my shoulder. "You want to see what they look like when no one's assigning them a role." She didn't answer. But she followed. Of course she did. The shrine was dim. Lantern light. No illusions. No stage. Asia was sitting cross-legged, brushing out her own hair, murmuring healing prayers under her breath softly, rhythmically, like lullabies to herself. Gasper was asleep again, curled up beneath a blanket someone had actually offered him. Koneko sat on the porch, eyes closed, half a melon bun in her lap, the other half untouched. She didn't open her eyes when Rias appeared. She didn't stand. Didn't bow. Just sat. Like she didn't owe anything. Rias stood in the doorway. Didn't speak. Didn't move. But her breathing slowed. Her pressure dipped. Her hands trembled once just a little. Then. "They're quiet." "Of course they are," I said. "No one's demanding they prove their worth." She turned to me. "Faster now. Sharper." "But they're mine." "Wrong," I said gently. "They were yours." "That's the same thing." "It isn't," I said. "They served you. They respected you. Maybe even loved you. But they were never yours. Her mouth tightened. I didn't control them. I never said you did. Then why? Because you forgot to ask why they stayed, I said. You assumed they did because they should. That's not evil. It's just careless. She looked away. At Asia. At Koneko. At the quiet. Are they happy? She asked, voice lower. No, I said. Not yet. But they're honest. And that's more important. She didn't argue. She just stood there, trying to figure out how she'd lost something without anyone stealing it. I stepped beside her, close enough to speak without echo. You built a structure. You offered safety. That matters. It always will. She looked at me sideways. But you made them forget they had the right to say no. And you reminded them. No, I said. I gave them space. They remembered on their own. She looked at me for a long time. Not angry. Just sad. You're dangerous, she said. Only to people who confuse loyalty with possession. She hesitated. Then. Will they come back? Not my call, I said. Ask them. She didn't. She just turned. Walked back across the courtyard without saying another word. But I heard her footsteps. Softer now. Like the weight had shifted from pride to doubt. Which meant she might not come back alone next time. Chapter 20, The Wingless Messenger. Gojo's POV. Rossweisse showed up the way people always do when they're trying to act like they're not choosing something. No words. No knock. No aura. Just a figure at the gate in the rain. Her hair was wet. Her coat was the same cheap fabric Odin had assigned her, already fraying at the cuffs. Her suitcase wasn't with her. That told me everything. She hadn't packed. She hadn't left the faction. She'd just walked. Without permission. And that made this the most important step she'd ever taken. I didn't greet her. Didn't open the door. Didn't say her name. I just waited. Sitting at the top of the shrine steps, cup in hand, sleeves rolled. The others were inside. Asia's soft hum filled the air. Koneko napped in the hallway, wrapped in a blanket with ears twitching slightly. Gasper was quiet, but I could hear the scratch of his pen. He'd started translating old glyphs without being asked. They all knew she was there. But none of them moved. And neither did I. Not until she stepped forward. 3 steps. Across the wet stone path. Rain catching in her lashes. She didn't have an umbrella. Didn't wipe her face. Just stopped halfway to the shrine. And waited. So I stood. Walked down the steps, slow and casual, until the rain started hitting my shoulders. Visiting hours are over, I said lightly. Unless you're here to join the tea club. She didn't blink. You're not what I expected, she said. I get that a lot. You're dangerous. And you're late. I put water on for you yesterday. Her jaw tightened. You knew I'd come. No, I said. I hoped. You looked tired of being forgotten. She looked past me. Toward the broken roof. The crooked door. The scent of tea, the faint hum of magic, the warmth she'd never been offered without a clause attached. I got a message this morning, she said. From Odin. He wants me to relocate to Heaven's border. Of course he does, I said. The Norse don't like assets being left in unmonitored spaces. I'm not an asset, she said, voice sharp. You are, I replied. You just haven't admitted that's how they see you. Her mouth opened ready to argue. Then closed. Because she knew. I'm a Valkyrie, she said quietly. No, I said. You're Rossweisse. Valkyrie's a job title. Don't confuse it with your name. She looked up sharply. I smiled. Unless you want to be property forever, I suggest you start separating those two. The rain didn't stop. Didn't lighten. But she didn't leave. She stepped one pace closer. Her boots hit the stone. I didn't come to defect. Good, I said. I don't want another soldier. Then what do you want? Someone who doesn't apologize for needing space. Her breath caught. You said something once, she murmured. That you don't collect people. You just leave the door open. Yep. And what happens if I step through? I looked at her. Serious now? No grin. No glasses. You sit down, I said. You take off the coat. And you remember what it's like to talk without checking who you're supposed to be. She didn't move. But her hands shook. Just once. A single ripple. She clenched them into fists. Let them go. I don't want to be a message anymore, she whispered. Then stop letting gods write you. She stepped forward. Up the first stair. Then the second. The rain trailed behind her like a cape. By the time she reached the threshold, she looked soaked to the skin. But her spine was straight. And her coat was unbuttoned. A choice. Not an accident. She stepped inside. Didn't look around. Didn't explain herself. She just sat beside the door, legs tucked, face down, hands open on her knees. The others glanced at her. But no one spoke. No one demanded a reason. That was the rule. Later that night, she joined the circle. Not for training. Not for talk. She just sat. Asia offered her a cup of tea. Koneko passed her a cushion. Gasper didn't say anything. But he scooted closer. Like he knew what it felt like to be the last to arrive. And I leaned back against the doorframe, smiling to myself. Because now the circle wasn't just real. It was growing. And no one had been asked to kneel.